Hello again. In the Middle Ages, people lived and worked in a very small geographical area, typically just one village and the surrounding countryside. They had no reason to travel more than a mile or two from their homes, and most did not. They were born, and then they lived, worked, and died, all in those same few square miles. When the Crusades began and men volunteered to go off to fight the Saracens in the Middle East, one man from a small village near Stroud, which is not far from Bristol, was part of a group of men marching to the wars. When they reached the city of Gloucester, he at once launched a ferocious attack on the first person he saw. He had never seen the city before, and he assumed that this must be Jerusalem, so exotic and unfamiliar was the sight of tall stone buildings and crowded streets. We laugh today at such a parochial outlook, and it's almost beyond belief that our modern society would be moving towards that state of affairs again. But that is what is happening now in this country. The move, which would in effect mean a return to the stunted perception mentally of the Feudal Age, when people were limited to the area where they lived and worked, socialising only a few minutes from their homes, is actually an aim which is beginning to be imposed in this country. It is, like so many other awful modern things, being advanced under the banner of reduced carbon usage and care for the environment. It's called the 15-minute city concept, and you'll probably be hearing quite a lot more about it in the coming months and years. The idea is that cities will be split into zones which will each contain everything which those living there might need. There will be schools, shops, health centres and a police station, all within an area where nothing is more than 15 minutes walk away. People will no longer have any need to leave their designated zone, and they will in fact be discouraged from doing so. Of course, some English cities are already effectively split into autonomous zones, and people tend to stay in their own areas without venturing too far into other districts. This is particularly so with parts of inner cities with high proportions of members of various ethnicities. The so-called postcode wars, in which teenagers from one housing estate who are seen in another part of the city are liable to be attacked or even killed. It is a manifestation of this state of affairs. Then too, some parts of cities, including the capital, are acknowledged to be the exclusive domain of some particular ethnic or religious group. The London borough of Tower Hamlets, for instance, is generally seen as a Muslim area. This tendency for cities to fragment into self-contained polities has always been seen as an undesirable thing. But now cities like Oxford and Canterbury are actively working towards preventing people, by means of fines, from travelling beyond their own small part of town. As Duncan Enright, the Oxfordshire councillor who's promoting the scheme, which is about to be imposed in Oxford by the way, explains, it is about those essential needs, the bottle of milk, pharmacy, GP, schools, which you need to have. All this is being done in a very cunning way by the use of what are described as traffic filters. In the description to this video, I give a link to a piece from the local newspaper in Oxford, which explains how the whole thing will work. You will not be allowed to leave your own zone by car or to drive across the boundaries from one zone to another, and if you do so, you'll be fined £70. Residents will be issued with permits which will allow them to leave their zone and visit another part of the city, but only twice a week. After you've used up your permit, you'll be fined every time you drive out of your zone. The aim of this is also to ensure that people don't get jobs outside their zone, their bit of the 15-minute city. Anybody trying to drive every day from one part of Oxford to another to work will be fined £70 for each journey. Remember, this isn't China we're talking about, but Oxford. Canterbury is also planning a similar scheme, and there's no doubt that this is an idea whose time has come. It all ties in neatly with the net zero idea. In London, the low emission zone is to be extended to every London borough in a few months' time. This too is intended to restrict people's movement. I live in the Essex town of Loughton, which is just outside the border of Greater London. It will mean that travelling to Woodford by car, a few miles from here, will mean being fined. The local council here, Epping Forest District Council, is starting such a scheme covering the roads through the forest, so that anybody driving from Loughton to Epping will also be fined. The real intention of all these schemes in Oxford and Canterbury, London and Epping, and the whole idea of the 15-minute city is to stop people moving around and to encourage them to stay in one small part of the country. If this continues, we shall end up like medieval serfs tied to one village or postal district of a town.